Hi everyone, I'm Bill Brenner from CRA. We are back with our continuing coverage of InfoSec World 2023. And I have the pleasure of being joined by Nathan Wensler, Chief Security Strategist at Tenable. And if you want to know more about Tenable, by the way, please visit securityweekly.com/TenableISW, as in InfoSec World, to learn more about them. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, you and I were talking a little bit before we went live, and you were talking about how, and it's certainly the hype factor around here right now, AI, you know, the potential for good, the potential for evil, and we talked about what's the practical discussion to be having here. So let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's a really important one, and certainly one I feel like I'm having often these days, because like any new tool or technology that we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years, there's always some amount of hype and bluster about it. It's going to change everything. People are going to lose jobs. We're all going to, cybersecurity is going to go away because these tools will take over, whether it's AI today or ML a couple of years ago, or user behavioral analysis before that, or SOAR platforms, or SIM, or we can go backwards in time to all kinds of tools. But at the end of the day, they are just tools. And I think it's important, especially right now, where AI as a concept has made its way into the non-technical arena, consumer level. People are using it, ChatGPT and the like. So we've moved an idea that's kind of outside of the specialty area of cybersecurity into the broader world. But that also means there is a lot of hype and a lot of buzzwords around it, and I think it gets used incorrectly by a lot of organizations. So taking a step back to really understand that what is the idea, the discipline of AI, well, it encompasses a lot of things. If you look at how universities teach it today and how research groups are working on it, it is about machine learning, and it is about large language models, and it is generative AI, and there is deep learning, and there's all these sort of very specific data processing concepts that are all part of the idea of artificial intelligence. When we think about it that way, it starts becoming a little bit easier to see the ways that you can use it in a more practical manner and step away from the sort of the hype of the whole thing to think that it's going to upend an entire industry. And now we can start being a little more practical about, well, how do I make this work better in my organization? How do I leverage the tool or the concept to make my teams more efficient or make us more secure? These are the kinds of things that we need to really kind of start to focus on, rather than just the hype of it's going to tell me what to do from now on.
I do find it interesting. So it seems like in early 2023, a lot of people got the idea that AI was suddenly a thing because they found ChatGPT. But this is something that security companies, including Tenable, have been, working with years.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely I think the ChatGPT phenomena added to spark this hype, and it's
absolutely.
It's just funny how the webs are weaved.
Well, and I think part of it too, it's how we define it, right? I mean, if you think about, just to give you the example, at Tenable we've been using machine learning concepts to do essentially predictive analysis for threats. And we see new vulnerabilities come out. We have models based on what we've seen in the past to try to identify, does this new vulnerability that's been identified, what's the likelihood that it becomes fully exploitable with a ransomware kit behind it and absolutely monetized within the next 28 days? And the algorithms and the work, the computational power behind that, it's machine learning. It's AI. It's a form of AI. We don't think of it as in terms of ChatGPT, but it is very much the same kind of concept.
So talk about that. There are practical, and you just started to talk about it. Sure. There are practical applications, and you just mentioned machine learning, generative AI, large language models. Talk about the very straightforward application that should be the goal.
So generative AI for me, I think, has some of the most interesting possibilities in cybersecurity, because conceptually what we're talking about here is something that translates a lot of data, big open data set, into something that is a little more easy to digest. Now, that might be have a natural language engine on the front of it, like a large language model, to help translate it into something that's conversational. But the idea is that we're distilling down massive amounts of data into something that's much more easy to understand. And that's a big challenge for cybersecurity people in general. We are inundated with data. All of our security tools, all of our scans and endpoint tools and firewalls and all the things that we use to manage, it all generates mountains of data. So having the capability to look at these big data sets and leveraging a generative AI model to say, well, here's all these different data points, what's actually happening here? Use it for a form of explainability, so that I can take this really technical data that's hard to understand. It could be in syntax that's code-based syntax that I might not understand really easily, and be able to translate that into a way of saying, well, here is an attack that's actually happening in your environment right now. It compromised this system, which is owned by Nathan. Nathan happens to also be a domain admin, so you have this risk. And it can walk you through essentially translating all that really technical data into something that a SOC analyst or a forensic analyst or someone who's just trying to wrap their head around where am I in danger in the organization really quickly and really easily. And that lends itself into better training models for SOC analysts. We talk all the time about the challenge of hiring new cybersecurity professionals. Well, if I can leverage those kinds of those explainability concepts, I can help a junior SOC analyst get up to speed far faster, because the tools will be able to explain it to them in a more natural way, be able to kind of connect the dots for them in a lot of ways. It's a training process, which means I'm going to get better return on that hire. I'm going to be able to get them into a more full-fledged SOC analyst role more quickly. There's a lot of benefit to that kind of thing. It's not terribly sexy, to be frank, but that idea that we can turn complicated data sets into easy to digest and understandable paragraphs, if you will, means we can make decisions faster, we can get to remediation faster, I can train faster, we literally can make our programs move faster by leveraging those kinds of concepts to translate the data.
So we've been talking about this in the larger big picture sense. Let's narrow the aperture to Tenable and what Tenable is working on, the concepts that you're putting into the tools. Again, it's pretty straightforward where we're going with this, but I want to narrow that aperture.
Yeah, so in Tenable, as you know, we've been in the vulnerability analysis business for 25 years. We created Nessus. We've been in cybersecurity for a long, long time. A lot of us, myself included, we started our careers using tools like Nessus. And we've continued to take that concept of analyzing technology for risk this entire time. Now we do it for anything. Cloud and identities and operational technology, web application, whatever kind of technology you might have, we have capabilities to assess it for risk and for vulnerabilities. But tying that all together is what gets hard. And as we know, as technology landscapes get more complicated, get more interconnected, you can't simply look at a misconfiguration in your AWS platform in an isolated way. You need to be able to understand, well, what does that misconfiguration provide access to? And what does that access provide an attacker? What can they get to behind that? And could they launch attacks against a web application? And could that lead to data loss? And, the attackers will move through your environment however they can. But as defenders, we often don't think that way. So one of the things that we've been doing at Tenable is incorporating some of these generative AI explainability concepts. Because we see the vulnerabilities in all the different technology spaces, we can start to connect the dots in an automated way so that an analyst can sit down, or a SOC person can sit down and say, well, I know I have a misconfiguration here in AWS, how bad is it really? And start to map out an easy way to understand what other risks sort of lay downstream so that we can make good decisions and say, well, do I need to fix this immediately, or can I use this in my normal like patch cycle or my normal mitigation cycles? Maybe it doesn't go anywhere disastrous. I might have time. Or maybe that simple flaw actually opens up my very critical infrastructure or my customer databases in a way that I didn't expect. And being able to take all of that different disparate data and talk about it uniformly is something that generative AI models are really good at. They're really good at extracting the commonalities out of all that data and where it all connects. So it's a really kind of powerful way of being able to understand in an organization where you're really at risk, far beyond just the simple, well, it's Microsoft Patch Tuesday and we need to deploy a couple of patches. It really can start to align more with business ideas and say, yeah, we have a lot of patches, but this one can lead to a compromise of a mission critical system. This is really my priority today. And without some of that analysis tools, I wouldn't have seen that quickly. So we're looking at leveraging kind of these AI concepts to make that risk decision-making process happen more quickly, because time is our enemy in all of this. You give an attacker more time, they will find a way. The sooner we identify the problem, the sooner we can remediate the problem, the sooner we can actually reduce the risk in our environments, and that's the goal we're all trying to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all you do, and all my best on all of these efforts. Tenable has a long, storied history, and I look forward to seeing more of what you do on the AI front. But just a reminder to the audience that if you want to learn more about Tenable, please go to securityweekly.com/Tenable ISW. And we'll be back.